Hello family. Welcome to AfriVibe Stories, home for captivating African tales. Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. To the outside world, Daniel Mensah and Zara Mensah were the definition of perfection. At gala events, red carpet premieres, and high society soirees, they strode in hand, radiating wealth, success, and unshakable love. Daniel, handsome in his tailored tuxedo, was the ever-supportive husband, always ready with an encouraging smile. Zara, glamorous in her couture gowns, held court as the brilliant CEO of Zara Luxe, the luxury fashion empire she had built from scratch. Together, they were dubbed relationship goals by magazines and social media alike. Beneath the polished surface, however, an undercurrent of envy frayed Daniel's carefully composed facade. He had abandoned his own entrepreneurial dreams to support his wife's ascent, yet every round of applause for Zara felt like a personal slight. When journalists gushed about Zara's latest clothing line sellout, Daniel's gut twisted. He told himself that he loved her success, but jealousy clung to him like a second skin. One evening, at the grand unveiling of Zara Luxe's flagship boutique in Dubai, Daniel stood at the edge of the VIP rope, watching from behind. Cameras flashed as Zara descended the staircase in a shimmering gold gown, her dark hair tumbling over her shoulders. She smiled widely, waving to admirers. The crowd parted for her like a river, and Daniel's heart thundered in his chest. Not with pride, but with a hiss of bitterness. "Isn't she exquisite?" a dignitary whispered beside him, nodding toward Zara's elegant silhouette. Daniel forced a smile. "She's incredible," he said, though his voice quivered slightly. He ached for recognition. When photographers turned their lenses toward him, he smiled dutifully, but inside, the cameras felt like spotlights highlighting his own perceived insignificance. Later that night, after the champagne had been poured and the party spilled onto the rooftop terrace, Daniel found a quiet corner away from the throng. Zara floated through the crowd, graciously greeting guests. She was in her element, commanding attention and respect. Daniel's chest tightened. He leaned against the marble balustrade, staring down at the city lights below. High above the glittering skyline, every light seemed to mock him. A soft voice broke his reverie. "Daniel, are you okay?" He turned to see Zara slipping beside him, her eyes bright with warmth. The moonlight caught in her eyes, making them look silvery blue. "I'm fine," he lied, watching her. "You were amazing tonight. Everyone was talking about you." She smiled, touching his arm. "I couldn't have done it without you. My partner in life and business." Her words struck him like an arrow. Partner. Her partner. He closed his eyes, swallowing the bitterness. He should feel honored. She loved him. Yet the emptiness gnawed at him. She leaned close. "Come dance with me," she asked, offering her hand. Daniel hesitated for only a moment before taking her hand. They swayed to the faint strains of a piano playing somewhere inside. He looked into her face, her perfect cheekbones, her radiant skin, her confident smile, and forced himself to smile back. But as they danced, his mind turned darker. If he truly felt invisible, if he believed that fate owed him more, then perhaps he needed to claim it. He tightened his grip on Zara's hand, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The next morning, still jet-lagged, they returned to Lagos. Zara wanted rest, but Daniel insisted on stopping by the headquarters first. She indulged him, stepping out of their sleek black SUV under the late morning sun. Employees gathered outside the imposing glass building, cheering as Zara approached. Flashbulbs popped. Daniel watched, arms folded, as his wife stepped up to the platform erected for her quarterly address. Zara's voice rang out across the courtyard as she unveiled the latest financials. Revenues had soared 15% year over year, expansion plans were announced for Paris and Tokyo, and new celebrity partnerships were teased. The crowd erupted in applause. Daniel's jaw clenched. He felt like a spectator at his own wife's triumph. After the ceremony, as they walked inside, a reporter approached them. "Daniel, how do you feel about your wife's record-breaking success?" He managed a polite nod. I'm incredibly proud, he said, forcing eye contact. The camera crew recorded his every word. Inside, he burned with a silent fury. Once inside the glass-walled boardroom, Zara sank into her chair, reviewing notes for the afternoon meeting. Daniel hovered behind her, watching her type on the tablet. He recalled his own abandoned project, a technology startup he had shelved to help fund Zara's initial collections. He had sacrificed everything: time, savings, self-esteem. All for her. And still, no one credited him. He closed his eyes briefly, inhaling deeply. When he opened them, resolve glinted in his gaze. That evening, as they dined at their penthouse apartment overlooking the city, Zara chatted about her plans for the next season. Bold patterns, eco-friendly materials, a celebrity ambassador. Daniel smiled and nodded, but his mind charted a different course. If he could control Zara's company, he could finally step out of her shadow. He could direct the empire. More than that, he deserved the credit and the wealth. He pushed his plate aside. You know, Zara, he began casually, I've been thinking. Perhaps it's time we restructured the company. You're brilliant at design and vision, but everyday operations, I could handle that side. Zara paused, her fork mid-air. She studied him, concern in her eyes. Danny, the current team is doing fine. Why change now? He shrugged. I just feel restless. I want more responsibility. To feel needed. She reached across the table, placing her hand over his. You are needed. You've always been needed. He nodded, but his smile was cold. He let her hand fall from his before she realized. He thought, soon, very soon, she would need him even more, because she wouldn't have a choice. For a moment, Daniel excused himself to visit the private study they kept on the lower floor. There, under the soft glow of a desk lamp, stood shelves lined with trophies and crystal plaques bearing Zara's name. He ran a finger over the words CEO of the Year, Innovator Award, and Woman of the Decade. Each accolade glittered like a distant star in the dim light, provoking a hollow ache instead of pride. In the corner, his own ambitions lay abandoned. He pressed his palm against the glass of a particularly ornate award etched with her name and date. The cool surface offered no comfort. Daniel drew back, hands trembling, and swept his gaze across the study. It was here, in this sanctuary of recognition, that his envy solidified into purpose. He would no longer linger in her shadow. He would seize what he believed was rightfully his. He could almost taste the power that would be his once Zara was out of the way. Hungrily. His calm facade masked the storm brewing beneath. Dark intentions. As he left the study, Daniel paused at the entrance to the penthouse living room, where Zara's voice floated from the grand piano in the corner. She was practicing a new melody for an upcoming charity gala, her fingers dancing over the keys with effortless grace. The notes filled the room with warmth and hope, tones he once loved. He watched her, silhouette bathed in golden lamplight, and felt a final surge of bitter determination. The world saw a perfect couple, a seamless partnership of love and ambition. Only Daniel knew the darkness that lay beneath the veneer. Daniel Mensah slipped through the rain-slicked streets of Lekki, Lagos, his mind a tempest of swelling resentment and cold resolve. The neon signs of bars and boutiques blurred past as he guided his sleek black Mercedes to a discreet townhouse on Admiralty Way. In the back seat lay a leather briefcase. Inside, documents that would bind Zara's fate to his own ambitions. Tonight, the seeds of betrayal would be sown. He parked under a flickering street lamp, its yellow glow pooling on the wet asphalt. Steeling himself, he retrieved the briefcase and strode toward the front door, his expensive loafers clicking against the concrete. Inside, a single desk lamp illuminated a cluttered mahogany desk piled with legal pads and contract drafts. Behind it sat Mr. Tunde Ajayi, a lean man in a rumpled suit, his shrewd smile sharpening under the lamp's glare. Daniel, good to see you again, Tunde said, rising and extending a hand. You look tense. Daniel offered a curt nod. Cut the pleasantries, Tunde. You have the draft. Tunde opened a drawer and withdrew a thick packet. Here it is, your wife's will supplement, signed last week under duress, and a new power of attorney clause that transfers interim control to you if she's incapacitated. All legally watertight. I've hidden the fees in offshore trusts. No paper trail back to you. Daniel's jaw tightened as he flipped through page after page. Each clause was meticulously crafted. Provisions for accidental injury that triggered transfer of shares, clauses designating him sole successor, indemnifications shielding him from suspicion. It was flawless. And the notary? Already lined up, Tund said. A small favor from your friend at Emirates, notary services in Dubai. He guarantees no questions asked. Daniel closed the packet with a snap. Good. Now tell me again, if she falls off that balcony, the will activates immediately. Tund grinned. By the next business day, you'll hold 51% of Zara Lux's B shares, with you as managing director until a new board election. And no family member can contest it. Family inheritance laws are overridden by the powers you'll hold. Daniel's heart pounded. He rubbed his palms along his trousers. Perfect. Tund clasped his hands. All we need now is the unfortunate incident. Daniel's face darkened. Tomorrow, at the coastal villa. Anniversary dinner. I'll convince her to step onto the balcony for a toast, and give her a gentle push. He forced a hollow laugh. It'll look like a tragic accident. Nobody will suspect me. Tund's expression hardened. Be sure you can act the wounded husband convincingly. The surveillance camera angle is narrow, your side of the terrace won't be caught. But if the police investigate thoroughly, you'll need a solid alibi and grief to spare. Daniel nodded. Already in place. I've arranged with Chief Inspector Ease for a quiet file. He owes me a favor from that charity gala last year. Tund raised an eyebrow. Inspector Ease is dangerous. Don't get too cocky. Daniel's lips curled. I won't. Between your legal wizardry and my insider connections, the plan can't fail. He paused. But I want Zara's fortune without the divorce headaches. No messy settlements. She signs the will, then vanishes. That's cleaner. Tund tapped the contract packet. This covers accidental death scenarios. Hospitals, coroner's office, you'll have plausible deniability. Daniel's gaze flicked to the single bulb overhead. Good. Tomorrow night, then. I'll wear that navy tuxedo, the one she loves. She won't see it coming. He stood, gathering the packet and briefcase. I'll text you when it's done. Tund nodded, watching Daniel's retreating back. Remember, Daniel, it's one push. Don't let your emotions get in the way. Back at home, Daniel's facade of calm shattered the instant he crossed Zara Lux's threshold. The familiar scent of sandalwood and jasmine greeted him, and he paused at the foyer, recalling their first meeting here, years ago. He pressed a hand to the doorframe, steadying himself before stepping into the living room. Zara sat at the glass coffee table, a stack of travel brochures spread before her. She looked up, her expressive dark eyes lighting with surprise. You're home early. He set the briefcase down and forced a weary smile. Just wanted to see you before you head out. He leaned against the sofa, folding his arms. How are you feeling about the international launch? Zara closed her laptop and gestured for him to sit. Excited. We've secured prime spots in Paris Fashion Week, and Tokyo's luxury district is interested in flagship stores. It's everything I dreamed of. He sat beside her, heart hammering. That's amazing. I'm proud of you. He forced warmth into his tone. She reached for his hand. I couldn't have done it without you. Your support means the world. His breath caught, but he didn't allow gratitude to weaken him. He withdrew his hand, glancing at the brochures. Actually, Zara, I've been thinking. With all this expansion, maybe we should revisit our prenuptial agreement. And, he paused, choosing words carefully. Discuss the divorce clause. Zara's eyes narrowed. Divorce clause? Daniel, what? He held up a hand. Hear me out. You're building an empire that could sustain generations. But I need protection too. If you ever decide to move on. Her chest tightened. Are you serious? After everything I've sacrificed. He met her gaze. I want fairness. We're equals in this marriage. Let's set terms that reflect that. Zara's rich complexion flushed. So you want a divorce settlement before we even start? Is that what this is? His pulse quickened. No, I need security. You're planning a big launch, and I want stability for myself. She sat back, hurt flashing in her eyes. You sound like you don't trust me. He softened his expression. It's not about trust. It's a business marriage as much as anything. Let's draw up terms. Zara stood abruptly, brochures scattering. I can't believe you. I thought you loved me. He rose too, closing the gap. I do. But I also have my own future to consider. Your future? She repeated, voice trembling. You sacrificed your startup to help me launch Zara Luxe. You promised we'd build this together. His jaw clenched. I helped you because I believed in you. But now I need recognition. She stepped back. Recognition. Give me a break, Danny. I've recognized you every day. He interrupted, discreet fury surfacing. I recognized myself by supporting you. But the world only sees Zara Luxe. They don't see me. She shook her head, tears welling. You'll see me at the airport tomorrow. I'm flying to Paris for fittings. I don't have time for this. Without waiting for his response, Zara swept past him, collecting her brochures. Daniel stood rooted, watching her back as she stormed toward their bedroom. His pulse pounded. How dare she? He closed his eyes, swallowed bile. Tomorrow at the villa, she would see a different Daniel, the devoted husband, distraught and innocent. And after that, everything would be his. Later that night, Daniel lay in their king-size bed, staring at the ceiling fan spin. He heard Zara in the bathroom, the steady click of her skincare bottle. The soft melody of her voice, practicing new taglines for the foundation she intended to launch, pulled at him, a memory of love once genuine. He closed his eyes, recalling happier times, their first gala as a couple, her surprised laugh when he proposed beneath the Christmas lights, their whispered dreams of shared success. But envy gnawed at him, relentless. He thought of the briefcase tucked in his car, legal nails driven one by one into Zara's coffin. He pictured the balcony that night, the wine sparkle under the moon, her trusting smile as he raised his glass. And then the shove, a small motion, almost affectionate, and her body sailing over the railing into oblivion. He exhaled sharply. No hesitation. No doubt. Sleep eluded him. Instead, Daniel slipped from the bed, pulled on his trousers and socks, and left Zara's door ajar. He palmed the wedding ring on his nightstand, once a symbol of love, now a weight of obligation. He slid it off and pocketed it. Tomorrow, he would act the husband. Tomorrow, he would bury the ring in sand. At 3 a.m., he retrieved the briefcase from the Mercedes, his breath misting in the dawn chill. He glanced at the sky, already bruising toward dawn. Tomorrow, he whispered. You won't see it coming. A street cleaner's distant whistle echoed. Daniel shook his head as if to clear it. Then he vanished into the night, a man on the brink of unleashing the darkest betrayal. The moon hung low and luminous over the azure waters as Daniel and Zara arrived at the coastal villa that would host their anniversary getaway. A soft breeze carried the scent of salt and gardenia, mingling with the faint pulse of distant waves. The villa's white columns glowed under strategically placed uplights, while lanterns bobbed along the pathway. Daniel parked the car and stepped out, offering his hand to Zara. Her ebon skin glowed softly in the moonlight as she accepted it, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. Danny, this is magical, she breathed, trailing her fingers over the carved balustrade. She wore a silken emerald slip dress that clung to her curves, the very gown he had chosen for her days ago. He watched her, admiration twisting into something more complicated, covetousness and resolve. "It's perfect, just like you," he said, helping her out of the car. His voice held just the right note of warmth. They climbed the steps together, laughter drifting from their lips as they followed a maitre d' in crisp whites to the terrace. The table was set for two, overlooking the cliff's edge. Crystal glasses refracted candlelight as a violinist softly played a melancholy tune. The staff stood at discreet intervals, ready but unseen. Zara ran her hand along the linen, touching one of two champagne flutes etched with their initials. "Daniel, you outdid yourself," she said, raising an eyebrow. He offered a bow, pleased to see her delight. Dinner arrived, seared scallops on jade-hued puree, lobster tails drizzled with beurre blanc, and a tower of chocolate soufflé. They ate slowly, savoring each bite and toasting to another year of love. With every toast, his plan edged closer to reality. After dessert, he stood and extended his hand. "Shall we take a walk?" Zara nodded, slipping her hand into his. They strolled along the terrace, the drop to jagged rocks hundreds of feet below obscured by shadows. He led her toward an arched alcove where a low stone bench overlooked the vast ocean. Wind whipped at Zara's hair, sending it tumbling over her shoulders. "It's breathtaking," she whispered, leaning forward to inhale the salt-sweet air. Daniel stood behind her, chest taut. He reached for her hand, pressing it to his lips. She turned, trusting. "What is it?" she asked softly. He looked into her eyes, felt the sting of envy sharpen. "Zara, I love you more than anything." His voice cracked to show sincerity. She smiled, laying her head against his chest, the rhythm of her heartbeat soft beneath his palm. For a moment, his heart thundered with echoes of that lie. Then he braced his grip on her waist, steadying himself. He recalled the legal packet in his hotel safe and the promise it represented. With practiced calm, he raised his glass. "To us," he said, and they clinked. She returned the toast, her smile radiant. He set his flute down on the stone ledge, stepping closer under the guise of affection. Zara looked up at him, puzzled, her lips curved in a soft question. He stared at her for a heartbeat too long. "Zara, I need to show you something." His tone was tentative. She nodded and reached for his hand. Then, in one fluid motion, he planted his foot at the small of her back and shoved. Warm air whooshed from her lungs as her arms flailed. Her eyes widened in a silent scream. Time stretched, the flash of her white teeth, the flutter of her eyelashes, the way her silk dress caught the moonlight as she arced over the ledge. She tumbled over the railing, crashing against exposed rock. Daniel lunged forward, catching the edge for an instant before losing his grip. Zara's body rotated in midair, arms reaching for the sky before arcing downward toward the jagged stones below. He clutched at empty air, heart pounding, breath jagged. "No!" he cried, voice raw and accusing. He fell onto his hands and knees, the rough stone digging into his palms. A maid's shriek pierced the night. "Madam! Madam!" she cried, rushing forward. A guard shouted into his radio. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Daniel snapped out of shock. Reaching into his pocket, he retrieved his phone and dialed emergency services. "Send an ambulance to the cliffside villas, third-floor balcony," he said, voice controlled despite the tremor. "My wife," she fell. Within moments, lights flashed on the terrace as staff and local security converged. A trembling maid held a shawl over her mouth, eyes wide with terror. Daniel stayed bent over Zara, wiping her brow, pressing gentle kisses to her cheek. The ambulance arrived. Medics leaped out swiftly, unfolding a stretcher. "Sir, step back please," one paramedic said, voice firm. He checked her carotid pulse, then shook his head at his partner. "Weak but present. We need to move her now." Daniel rose, swaying, and allowed them room. He cupped her face, continuing his act of grief. "Stay with me, Zara," he urged, tears he did not feel glinting in his eyes. They secured her onto the stretcher. He pressed his hand against hers before the paramedics strapped it. "I'm right here," he murmured. As they loaded her into the ambulance, He watched with damp eyes as the doors shut behind them. The driver turned on the siren, red lights flashed against the white villa walls. He reached for his phone and texted Tund, "It's done. Proceed." Then he slipped it away and folded his arms, head bowed. He inhaled deeply, tasting salt and power. Daniel Mensah had crossed a line. Tonight, he would begin to claim Zara's empire. But at what cost? The night sky seemed to judge him, each star a silent witness to his betrayal. He rose, dusting off his trousers, resolute and utterly remorseless. Daniel Mensah's black Mercedes glided under the morning sky as he pulled into St. Gabriel's Hospital. The white facade loomed ahead, sterile and unyielding. He stepped out, his navy suit jacket still bearing a faint rose stain and specks of sand from the villa. He squared his shoulders, smoothing his lapel. Cameras lined the entrance, their flashes a staccato drumbeat. Daniel bowed his head, hands trembling, and slipped inside. A security guard in crisp uniform nodded him through velvet ropes behind which reporters jostled. Headlines flared on camera phone screens: "Billionaire wife survives fall, husband arrives at hospital, suspicious circumstances?" Daniel offered a hollow smile and moved past, eyes downcast. In the lobby, he passed a string of newsvans, satellite dishes aimed skyward like vultures. He inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of every gaze, and the satisfaction that his plan had nearly succeeded. A nurse intercepted him at the elevator bank. "Mr. Mensah, Dr. Ease is expecting you in ICU room 312. She guided him to the lift, her voice compassionate. Daniel nodded, pressing a button for the third floor. "Thank you," he whispered, voice thick, though no tears fell yet. Inside the elevator, he pressed 3. The doors closed, isolating him with his breath and the soft hum of the machine. He ran through rehearsed lines. "She's a fighter. I love her so much. Please be okay." But underneath, adrenaline thrummed in his veins. If Zara lived, the murder would become attempted murder, an even riskier game that required new preparations. The elevator dinged and the doors opened onto a pale corridor. Staff murmured condolences as he passed, a chorus of sympathy that underscored his isolation. He swallowed hard, gripping his handkerchief so tightly his knuckles ached. Double doors marked ICU. He pushed them aside and entered. Rows of beds lay behind drawn curtains. Machines beeped in mechanical rhythm, each tone a reminder of life's fragility. Dr. Omotola Ease stood over Zara's bed, reviewing a clipboard. As Daniel approached, she removed her mask. "Mr. Mensah," she said, voice calm and firm. "Your wife survived." His heart lurched. She's alive?" Dr. Ease exhaled softly. "We operated overnight. Head trauma, multiple fractures. She remains unconscious but stable. It may be days before she regains consciousness." Relief and dread tangled in his chest. "Thank you," he whispered, stepping closer. He bent and took Zara's hand, marveling at its cool warmth. "Zara," he murmured, voice quivering with practiced sorrow. "Please come back to me." He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. Her breathing was steady, the monitor a slow heartbeat in the quiet room. Footsteps approached. 2 officers appeared, Inspector Adamma, tall and stern, and Detective Salami, eyes sharp. They paused at the bedside. "Mr. Mensah," Adamma said, voice firm. "We need to speak with you." Daniel rose, bracing himself. "Of course." They led him to a small consultation alcove just outside the ICU doors, a frosted window giving him one last view of Zara's chest rising and falling. Salami produced a tablet. "We have new evidence," Salami announced. "A neighbor live-streamed your anniversary dinner from an adjacent villa. We recovered the video." He tapped the screen. Grainy footage played, 2 silhouettes clinking glasses, then the narrower figure pushing the others back with deliberate force. The camera wobbled before cutting out. Daniel's stomach clenched. He straightened, forcing calm. "That's not conclusive. It could be an awkward slip." Adamma's gaze pinned him. Online investigators have geo-located the villa and time-stamped the fall. We also have your location records. You were the only adult male on that balcony. I was in shock, Daniel said, voice thick. I panicked when she slipped. My calls to emergency services show I tried to help at once. Salami frowned. We'll verify all calls and GPS pings. You will remain available for further questions. Daniel nodded, feeling a cold dread settle. I'm innocent. I loved her. Adamma closed his notebook. We'll be in touch. Focus on her recovery. They departed. Daniel watched their backs until they disappeared, then exhaled in relief mingled with terror. The live stream had shattered his alibi, but it also unleashed a flurry of public speculation he could not control. He returned to Zara's bedside, pressing her hand to his lips. I'll fix this, he murmured. He pulled out his phone and dialed a secure line. Tund, it's done, he said when the legal counsel answered. The video's out. I need that footage buried and the shares transferred into my name before the police lock things down. A pause. I'm on it, Tund's voice replied. Inspector Ease can smooth over the paperwork. I'll make the payments today. Be ready to go quiet. Daniel ended the call. Daniel tapped his screen and examined the monitors through the glass. Every expression, every tear, would be captured and amplified. He needed to take control of the story. He reached into his jacket pocket and produced a crisp business card for Sterling Communications, a top-tier crisis management firm. With careful composure, he dialed their 24-hour hotline. In hushed tones, he arranged for a press release to emphasize Zara's strength and his steadfast devotion. Slipping the card back into his pocket, he glanced at the enemy of truth outside. Social media feeds updating with speculation, news tickers pounding out accusations. Board members awaited a statement, investors were poised to reroute finances. Tund worked on offshore transfers. The live stream, the fall, it could all be spun. He squared his shoulders, steeling himself for battles ahead. Outside, news vans and patrol cars lined the driveway. His phone buzzed, colleagues checking in, legal notices, investor queries. The sky had brightened to pale blue, but the day held no promise of sunlight. He realized the clock was against him. Inspector Adamma's polite demeanor masked deep suspicion. Before long, they would demand irrefutable evidence. He needed to undermine their case, cast doubt, exploit technicalities, and muddy the narrative. With Zara unconscious, he still held key leverage, her survival, his public sorrow. But every ticking second threatened to topple his carefully constructed empire now. A nurse entered, checking monitors. Daniel stood still, breathing shallow, as she adjusted Zara's for. Mr. Mensah, the nurse whispered. You should rest. She needs calm. He nodded, stepping back. Thank you, he said softly. He leaned close to Zara once more, pressing a final kiss to her hand. Stay with me, he whispered. As long as you live, I have a chance. He stepped back as footsteps approached again. A single officer appeared at the alcove's entrance. We have some questions for you, Mr. Mensah. Daniel Mensah's palms sweated against the cold metal table as he sat in the interrogation room of the Criminal Investigation Department. The room's single overhead light cast harsh shadows on the prosecutor's laminated file, and the thin plastic chair dug into his back. Across from him, Inspector Adamma and Detective Salami exchanged glances before pulling out a thick stack of documents. Daniel tried to swallow, but his throat felt constricted, as though every breath would betray him. Mr. Mensah, Inspector Adamma began, setting the file on the table with a decisive thud. We've gathered substantial evidence in your case. Let's review. He flipped open to a section highlighted in yellow. First, we confirmed your offshore payments to Mr. Ajayi's firm, over $200,000 this week alone. Why were you wiring these funds? Estate planning? That seems a generous retainer. Daniel forced a measured exhale. Investing in my wife's business security. Standard practice for high net worth couples. Detective Salami leaned forward, tapping on a tablet that projected spreadsheets onto a small screen. Your personal assistant, Ms. Chioma, provided us with messages. You urged her to schedule secret meetings with Ajayi and assured her everything was legal. And yet you lied about the nature of those meetings. The gravity of the moment sank in. Chioma, his dedicated assistant of 3 years, now stood against him. He clenched his jaw. I did consult legal counsel on prenuptial matters. That has nothing to do with her accident. Adamma nodded. Next, your search history. How to make a fall look accidental, balcony liability law Nigeria, surviving head trauma injury, all in the early hours leading up to the incident. Explain these inquiries. Daniel's heart knotted. He realized he'd been sloppy switching from incognito mode. He drew a shaky breath. I was researching liability clauses for a case study I planned to publish. Zara and I discussed hosting a webinar on accident prevention in high-risk venues. Salami's eyes narrowed. Convenient. Except there's no record of such a webinar. And we have your draft outline on your laptop, still in your desk. It's titled, Fatal Falls, Liability in Luxury Residences. Daniel's knuckles whitened on the table. He hadn't deleted that file. That was an abandoned idea. It never went live. Adamma closed the file and rotated it. We also have CCTV from the villa's security system. Notice the timestamp. He pressed a button. Grainy footage splashed onto a small LCD screen. Daniel's mirrored jacket gleaming against the villa's marble tile as he guided Zara toward the stone balustrade. Then the shove, captured in a subtle side angle, clearly depicting his arm extension and the moment of impact. Daniel collapsed forward in his chair, stifling a groan. He covered his face with his hands, the room spinning. That footage is doctored, he whispered. They tampered with the drive. Salami shook his head. We verified the hash. It's authentic. He tapped another file. Your phone logs confirm you called Chief Inspector Ease to smooth over the paperwork. That call lasted 7 minutes, right before the ambulance arrived. Your relationship with the inspector compromised the investigation. Daniel leaned back, breathing ragged. He had never disclosed his connection to Ease. Intended as an insurance policy, now it was a liability. He's a friend, he said, voice unsteady. He offered advice, not interference. Adamma rose, pocketing the files. I'm afraid, Mr. Mensah, that friendship doesn't excuse obstruction of justice. He signaled to Salami. We're charging you with attempted murder and tampering with evidence. Daniel's head snapped up. Attempted murder? I loved her. Salami interrupted. Motive, means, and opportunity. You had all three. He handed Daniel a printed arrest warrant. I'm placing you under arrest. Daniel's world contracted to the weight of the cuffs snapping around his wrists. He stood, heart hammering, legs trembling. This is a mistake. Inspector, I can fix this. I have video from my side, alibi witnesses. Adamma shook his head. Your alibi crumbled the moment the live stream went public. He stepped back. You're free to speak with your attorney. Daniel's phone buzzed in his jacket pocket. He dug it out, reading the screen. Missed calls from Ajayi, a text from Sterling Communications, and dozens of urgent messages from board members demanding resignation. He tapped Stanley, the crisis manager. No answer. He was cut off. He realized in that moment that every channel of control had been severed. As Detective Salami let him out, Daniel caught a glimpse of his reflection in the glass. Dark circles under his eyes, a haunted expression he never knew he possessed. Beyond the doorway, journalists clustered, cameras raised, waiting to capture his fall from grace. The hallway lights felt too bright, and every footstep echoed like a sentence. He was escorted past rows of officers, the click of his cuffs punctuating the silence. A TV mounted on the wall broadcast the breaking news. Daniel Mensah arrested, attempted murder charges filed. His own image was plastered on the screen, mouth open in protest. A lawyer appeared at the corridor's end, briefcase in hand, retained too late. Daniel called out, but officers kept him moving. He spun his head, catching a glimpse of a Department of Justice official in a dark suit. "I want my lawyer," he demanded, voice resonant, waning. They paused, allowing him 3 steps before resuming their escort. He took a shuddering breath. If only he had prepared for this scenario, he thought. But it was always Zara he visualized, alive or dead, not himself behind bars. They pushed open the heavy glass doors to the public lobby. A surge of camera flashes assaulted him. Shouts and questions reverberated. "Why did you do it? Did you push her? What about the debts?" Daniel raised his head defiantly. "I'm innocent," he shouted, but the words were drowned by the cacophony. Detective Salami drove him into a waiting van. The door slammed shut behind him, muffling the clamor. Inside, he looked at his reflection in the tinted window, a man broken by ambition. He pressed his forehead to the cool glass, eyes closing. Inside the van, Daniel's thoughts spiraled in a swirl of regret and raw fear. He remembered the first time he tasted real power, negotiating Zara's landmark partnership with an A-list celebrity, the pride in drafting the press release, seeing the brand's value skyrocket. He recalled the thrill of watching the share price tick higher, all under his name. And then the envy, the silent chiseling at his resolve, the moment ambition eclipsed loyalty. He had welcomed darkness like a fever, and now it had burned him. Outside, social media erupted. #MurderHusband trended within minutes. Legal pundits dissected every move. Fans of Zara Lux rallied in support of their embattled icon. The board of Zara Lux released a terse statement. "Mr. Mensah is suspended from all duties. Our focus is on Ms. Mensah's recovery." Daniel pictured the vacant seat at the board meeting, the directors nodding as they excised his influence. The empire he sought to inherit was uniting, closing ranks around the woman he tried to destroy, leaving him powerless and alone. Inside, Daniel Mensah sat in silence, the weight of his lies finally bearing down, at last reduced to a captive of his own making. He opened his mouth for one final scream. This wasn't supposed to happen. Light filtered through the blinds of ICU room 312, casting pale stripes on the white walls. Zara Mensah stirred, eyelids fluttering as the steady beeps of monitors punctuated the quiet. For a moment, her mind was fogged, each breath a question. She shifted and felt the cool hospital sheet under her fingers. The door opened softly, and Dr. Omotola Ease entered, carrying a clipboard and wearing a gentle smile. "Good morning, Ms. Mensah," Dr. Ease said, pulling up a chair. "You're awake." Zara blinked, focusing on the surgeon's calm face. "Dr. Ease. I remember. The villa. The balcony." Dr. Ease nodded. "You sustained significant injuries, but you're strong. Your head trauma is healing well, and your bones will mend fully. It's a miracle you survived." Zara's lips trembled. "I thought I was going to die. I saw the rocks," she whispered. Dr. Ease offered a gentle squeeze of her hand. "You're a fighter. We'll have physical therapy begin this afternoon." Moments later, a skilled physical therapist entered, introducing himself as Bassi. He explained they'd work on strength and mobility. "One step at a time, Ms. Mensah. Your body will heal." Zara nodded, tears brimming. Determination glowed in her eyes as she prepared for the next battle. 2 days later, Zara sat upright in a wheelchair in the hospital's atrium, flanked by her chief operating officer, Amadi, and public relations head, Ifeoma. Cameras and reporters waited beyond a velvet rope. Her dark hair was pulled back, revealing a determined gaze beneath the protective bandage at her temple. Nurses and security kept watch. A small podium stood at the center, microphones ready. Ifeoma stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Ms. Mensah will address you shortly." Zara inhaled deeply, gripping the arms of the wheelchair. She rose as best she could, steadying herself. The atrium fell silent. "Good afternoon," she began, voice clear and resolute. "As many of you know, I survived a life-threatening accident orchestrated by the person I trusted most, my husband. I stand before you today, not as a victim, but as a witness to my own resilience. Reporters scribbled in notebooks. A cameraman adjusted his lens. Zara continued, to the millions who cheered my success and to those who doubted my strength, I say this: I will not be defined by violence or betrayal. I will rise stronger. A hand shot up. A reporter asked, Ms. Mensah, will you return to lead Zara Lux? And what of your personal foundation? Zara's eyes narrowed with purpose. Yes, I will resume my role as CEO. Effective immediately, the board has appointed me acting chairperson. We will convene an emergency session to restructure leadership, removing any influence that does not serve our values. As for the foundation, we will accelerate its launch. The Rise Above Abuse Foundation will support survivors of domestic violence worldwide. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Another reporter pressed, how do you plan to balance recovery and company duties? Zara smiled, a steely glint in her eye. I've faced worse. My recovery fuels my resolve. By month's end, I will return to the office daily, directing operations remotely if needed. My team is ready, and together we will move forward. Applause broke out as Zara sat, expression set with unwavering confidence. 2 days later in the glass-walled boardroom, Zara sat at the head of the table. Board members, both in person and via video call, watched her intently. The atmosphere was taut with anticipation. As you all know, Zara began, voice firm, my husband's actions revealed vulnerabilities in our governance and security protocols. It is my duty to restore trust and safeguard our mission. I propose the immediate dismissal of any director linked to the compromised council, the appointment of independent auditors, and the expansion of our Code of Ethics Committee. The lead board member, Madam Adesina, spoke up. Ms. Mensah, the board supports your counsel. Your vision for governance renewal is sound. The CFO, Mr. Okoro, cleared his throat. I must express concern about liquidity if we redirect funds to the foundation and governance adjustments. Our cash flow projections for Q3 are tight. Zara nodded, steepling her fingers. I appreciate your concern, Mr. Okoro. We will adjust our capital reserve strategy, seeking strategic investors and renegotiating supply contracts. Our philanthropic commitments will strengthen our brand, driving long-term value. Mr. Okoro nodded slowly, impressed by her business acumen. Understood. I'll update the financial model. Minutes later, Zara affixed her signature to the revised governance charter. The boardroom exhaled in unified purpose. At a gala held in her honor under a grand pavilion by the lagoon, Zara modeled a new collection line, Resilience. The runway was lined with cascading orchids and soft lantern light. Each design incorporated symbols of rebirth, phoenix embroidery, shattered glass motifs turned to lace. When Zara emerged in her black ensemble, the audience gasped, then erupted in cheers. After the show, seated at a long oak table draped in silk, she shared a private moment with her creative director, Amina. Each stitch tells our story, Amina said. You wear this with power. Zara placed her hand on Amina's. We all rise from our trials. Let's ensure every garment uplifts those who wear it. After the show, Zara joined Ifeoma at a reception table to announce the foundation's first grant recipients, 3 women who had survived abusive relationships and risen to lead community programs. Among them was Aisha, who welcomed teenage girls in her neighborhood to her urban greenhouse project. Aisha stepped forward, voice steady. I lost everything, but this foundation is my second chance. She held Zara's hand. Thank you for believing in our potential. Zara responded, your leadership inspires us all. The Rise Above Abuse Foundation will fund safe houses, counseling, and life skills training across 10 cities next year. In a final scene, Zara walked through the halls of Zara Lux headquarters, greeted by employees whose faces lit up at her presence. She paused at the doors of the design studio, where young interns sketched new concepts under a mural of a phoenix rising from flames. A junior designer, Chinedu, offered her a sketchbook. "I drew this for you, our queen of resilience," he said. Zara flipped through the sketches, a flowing red gown blossoming into golden feathers. She smiled, tears glistening. "Your talent honors me, Chinedu. Wear this story proudly." In a separate hallway, Zara paused at a mural on the wall, a phoenix rising from flames, symbolizing rebirth. She ran her hand along the vibrant feathers. As she gazed out the window at the Lagos skyline, skyscrapers pierced the morning haze like beacons of endless possibility. She closed her eyes and exhaled, feeling the full force of her survival and triumph. The path ahead would demand more courage, empowerment, and personal healing. Every setback had forged her unwavering resolve. Zara raised her chin, envisioning the next chapter, a world transformed by hope. Softly she whispered, "This is my legacy." The end. Enjoyed this story? Hit like, subscribe, and join the AfriVibe family. Your support keeps our stories coming. See you soon.